Viewer discretion is advised.
Tennessee Titans. You used to be the Oilers and you let Frank Reich do this to you. Remember when your coach punched his offensive coordinator? To be fair, as a Giants fan, Kill Drive probably deserved it. Oh, and let's not forget, you came up 1 yard short. That hurt.
Tennessee Titans, Amy Adams Strunk. Amy Adams Strunk is the daughter of former owner Bud Adams, who died in 2012. Not much is known about Amy Adams, but let me give you a guess as to where Bud Adams made his money. Is it A, real estate, B, finance, C, oil? If you answered C, you are right. You ever watch a game and say to yourself, well, this one is over? And when Bubba McDowell intercepted Frank Reich early in the second half and took it to the house, the wild card game between the Houston Oilers, now the Titans, and the Bills pretty much seemed over. But almost as quickly as that play happened, the Bills were right back in the game, as the Oilers had a major problem they had been masking all afternoon. They didn't have a fucking defense. Once Chill Factor 14, aka Frank Reich, found his groove and the holes in that Oiler defense, it was pretty much an unbelievable display of offense you may never see again. 5 consecutive TDs scored in about 12 minutes, 3 of them to Andre Reed, had the Bills up 38-35 in a comeback that would impress General Motors. The Oilers answered with a late field goal, but back then the OT rules were sudden death and all the Bills had to do was cash in a 32-yard chip shot and this game was history. The Bills would go on to lose their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl that year. No wonder they jumped through tables. In 1999, the Titans pulled a huge upset in the AFC Championship game. It was alleged by former Jags DN Ronaldo Wynn that the Titans and D coordinator Greg Williams had an edge, the Jags playbook, and their game plan. Wynn said Williams himself told him so when he became a member of the Titans. I don't find this to be too horrible, but you know Greg Williams was always up to something. Nissan Stadium, designed by HOK Sport, looks similar to other stadiums that were designed by the architecture firm like Heinz Field. In 2010, the venue found itself 6 feet underwater when heavy rains caused the Cumberland River to overflow. What I like about this place is the massive pedestrian bridge, which allows fans to access downtown Nashville and get shit-faced in a country western bar after the game. And the #1 all-time worst blowout in the Super Bowl era, because it happened the most recently. What's worse than being 0-6? Losing in historical fashion to the freaking Patriots. Kerry Collins started for the Titans and went 2 for 12, -7 yards, and an INT. Tom Brady was unstoppable, and in 3 quarters he went 29 of 34, 380 passing yards, and threw for 6 TDs. He completed a pass to 9 different receivers. The Titans actually finished 8-8 that year, which prolonged Jeff Fisher's tenure 1 more agonizing season. What's interesting about these jerseys is that they are typically cut from an extra 3 feet of material so that all of them are 1 yard short. I kind of find this design to be a mix of interesting and kind of cringe. As you can tell with the font for the numbers, they wanted to be edgy and ended up with this thing that looks like the Vikings and the Tampa Bay fonts had a baby they kept hidden in a closet for 20 years. Not many people remember this, but when Bud Adams moved the team to Tennessee, he tried to stash them in Memphis for a season. Playing in the Liberty Bowl was a disaster, as Nashville is another planet away from Memphis, and the Memphisians knew that they were just a side chick until the Titans would leave. After a year, they went to play at Vandy Stadium, then finally moved into Nissan in 1999. Obligatory 1 yard short reference. Nothing says intimidation to your opponents like a raccoon who's tripping hard on peyote, and that's what the Titans have as their mascot. A raccoon is actually the state animal of Tennessee. Yes, pride in your state is an animal that loves picking through trash cans for food. Though, in this example, I would consider T-Rack eating a dove. This one is easy, just rotate it so these flames are going up, change the colors to that of a dumpster fire, and turn these 3 stars into a ruler that measures 3 feet long. In honor of... you get it. If I had to rate an entire division as salty, the electrolyte test for the AFC South is off the charts. And Titans fan has had his team gut punch him like he was Harry Houdini, finding remarkable ways to be average and the very definition of second tier in the NFL. No titles, a previous history of losing, and since McNair, you've had a list of horrific starting QBs that rival that of the Browns. Better hope Mariota develops, or you'll be eating salt for dinner. I've got some advice for Mike Vrabel. Instead of chirping at your ex-teammates on the sidelines, try using a calculator when it comes to outcomes and when to go for 2. No matter what happens this year, Mariota doesn't look worthy of the #1 pick. You're more than likely going to move on and plug in the Jake Lockers of the world for the next 5 years. Oh, you expect something different? You employed Jeff Fisher for 15 seasons. I had to check my math. How did this one get so high on the list? Oh, I gave it credit for its aesthetically pleasing color scheme and being close to downtown Nashville, which has live music and a ton of bars, because alcohol. Ken Whisenhunt improbably led the Arizona Cardinals to their only Super Bowl appearance in team history. But when he jumped to Tennessee, the Wiz went 2-14 in his first season, and starting his sophomore campaign, 1-6 before getting burned in favor of Mike Mularkey. And just to reinforce what malarkey means.
Malarkey's slang for bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Though Nissan falls short of the $70K requirement, they are at $69,143. That's certainly close enough where they could squeeze in a few more butts into the arena. Nashville has the infrastructure and hotels, ample areas for the game day experience of getting hammered in their many bars. Practice space could be an issue, but maybe something temporary could be added. Weather is also a factor, and like Charlotte, it's unlikely to snow here, but it wouldn't be balmy and sunny. Still, could be a fun place for a Super Bowl, though unlikely when there are better options. Back when the Titans were the Oilers, they got absolutely fracked by the Cincinnati Bengals. Unlike most teams on this list, the Oilers put up 17 points. The problem was their defense got piped. Derrick Henry isn't actually good, he just gets a lot of carries. I don't know what is getting staler, your stadium or Ryan Tannehill's act in the playoffs. You went from surprising everyone to disappointing everyone in the span of 3 years. I bet Mike Vrabel would cut off his penis to get Ryan to stop throwing balls like this. Just wait until you pin your hopes on Malik Willis, and he is ass too. Tennessee Titans. Just announced this year, the Titans are going all in with a dome stadium that looks to be, well, more than just a place where football is going to be played. The new arena will be replacing the 23-year-old Nissan Stadium that has had its troubles over the years, one of them being flooding. The plan is to have this new stadium ready to go by 2026, and they better start shoveling dirt, as it looks to be a massive 60,000-seater in downtown Nashville. A lot of online commentary is that the initial renderings look like a giant Topgolf, but to me it looks more like an upscale apartment building. All kidding aside, this could be an innovator in terms of indoor stadium design, as it's clear the building will house more than just the seating bowl. It will feature many pavilions and indoor and outdoor party areas. They may not be capturing the look of Nashville, but it looks like they are going after the idea of Nashville, a non-stop good time where something is always going on. The inside looks like a hybrid between Jerry World and SoFi Stadium, with some openings for natural lighting from both the sides and from above. I'm also seeing a 360-degree LED scoreboard that will encompass the entire stadium, and huge jumbotron that will be greater than the width of the entire field. The roof is a significant addition, as it signals that this place has one goal in mind: Super Bowls. I've commented before that Nashville has the infrastructure to host a Super Bowl, they just don't have the stadium. Well, now the NFL will have no excuse. They also aim to attract national championships and year-round concerts. Yes, the renderings have gotten their fair share of criticism online, but honestly, once built, I think this arena will be instantly in the top tier of both stadiums and football destinations for years to come. Ah yes, the $2.1 billion giant record player, new Titan Stadium is set to become the next top-tier stadium in the NFL when it opens in 2026. Ground is set to begin getting shoveled in either late 2023 or in 2024. However, all the financing has been secured, with a little over half coming from taxpayer money. And it looks like they will be getting the bang for their buck, as the stadium features outdoor entertainment spaces, lots of bars, indoor pavilions, retail spaces, and of course, more bars. The roof will be translucent with intimate seating and high-angle slopes for the stands, so the fans will be right on top of the action. The stadium serves in stark contrast to the previous Nissan, which it will be built right next to, and that one was built on a budget. New Titan Stadium doesn't look to be sparing a penny and will likely be a prime future destination for a Super Bowl. I really think this one is going to be a winner. Also set for replacement, Nissan Stadium is aging, but full of charm. At the time it was built in 1999, it was one of the cheapest stadiums ever, especially for the era, with half of the funding being public. However, it has a ton of character. The stadium is set for replacement in 2026 with a $2.1 billion dome.
It's kind of amazing that they've been able to do as much as they're able to in that space. Like, everything is pretty aged. It definitely is in need of replacement, but it still has like this little charm. It's the only stadium in the NFL that has a dedicated space for its mascot. They actually have a dressing room. Stadium has gone through a couple of different name changes. So for example, like the concourse where they sell like all the concessions and all that stuff, they're little mini houses. And the reason that they're mini houses is because back in the day, and I'm sorry, I forget the company name, but like it was a construction company. And so like that was their little like tipping the hat to saying, hey, like this is what this stadium is because of our sponsor. They also have the chariot that comes out. Like there's a storage space in which they have the mascot and a chariot come out before like the game, and they have like a whole ceremony with like a sword and the whole 9 yards.
Number 2, T-Rack. T-Rack is the only mascot in the entire NFL that has his own locker room. And with that level of preparation, you better believe he does a great job. I guess trash pandas are the state animal of Tennessee, which is wild to me. But T-Rack is known to do stunts and rappel down buildings. A different version of him also ate a cheerleader right there on the field. He's my hero. Tennessee Titans Zach Mettenberger had a great arm coming out of LSU, but a winning percentage of 0 in his 10 starts over 2 years in Tennessee. His only 2 seasons in the NFL. Maybe having Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry to throw to helped him out in college. Just a little bit. Tennessee Titans Stephen Gostkowski. Our old friend Teddy Garcia almost made the cut once again, but Stephen Gostkowski was a little worse. After being an integral part of the Super Bowl wins for the Pats and making 4 Pro Bowls, Gostkowski arrived in Tennessee and started his Titans career by missing 3 field goals and 1 extra point in a narrow one victory in Denver. Oh my God. So the Broncos still lost. He missed 3 more kicks throughout the season and ended his career on the COVID list, leaving Titans fans missing Fat Randy Bullock. See Titans, Peyton Manning. Speaking of Peyton Manning, I found a team that does hate him with the passion. The Titans. Yeah, his goofy Manning cast might be funny, but if you're a Titans fan, you don't find him amusing at all. Manning was 14-5 against them, including a monster 425-yard game along with a 4 TD performance in 2005. He even had the gall to come back as a Bronco and still shit all over them in 2013 with a 397-yard 4 TD game, his last versus the teal and dark blue and reddish Tennessee Titans. Tackle Isaiah Wilson was the 29th overall pick in 2020 by the Titans, but appeared in 1 game before the team cut him for a monumental lack of commitment, showing more interest in rap than spitting hot fire on the offensive line. Tennessee Titans Susie Adams Smith. Now, a lot of times when a team owner dies, the children or widows take over and by default don't ruin things. Well, not Susie Adams Smith, who owned the team in 2014 and 2015 with the squad going 5-27 in those 2 years. Smith was smart though. She sold her shares to her sister Amy Adams Strunk, who might be just as clueless, recently firing Mike Vrabel and letting A.J. Brown go for peanuts. Tennessee Titans. In 1976, the then Oilers drafted Steve Largent in the 4th round. They didn't even think he was good and they planned on cutting him, but traded him to the Seahawks for an 8th round pick. Well, safe to say they made a big mistake. Largent became arguably the greatest possession receiver of all time, holding all the records for yards, receptions, and TDs when he retired. While Largent would get inducted to the Hall of Fame, the Oilers used that pick on wideout Steve Davis, who never played in the NFL. Also, quick shout out to the A.J. Brown trade, which was pathetic.
Tennessee Titans, Rustin Weber.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Honestly, I've never heard of this guy. From 2012 to 2015, Rustin Webster was the Titans GM and oversaw an abysmal period in the franchise's history. He drafted Marcus Mariota, bust. He drafted Bishop Sankey, Heidi-ho, who didn't flush out. He signed a bunch of free agents that didn't work, Sean Green, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Bernard Pollard, to name a few. And he spent a lot of draft capital on the often injured Taylor Lewan. The team went 18-46.
The Tennessee Titans. Former Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator Greg Williams, the catalyst behind Bountygate, stole the Jacksonville Jaguars playbook before the 1999 season, which is why the Jaguars fell short of the Super Bowl, says former Jaguars defensive lineman Ronaldo Wynn. I mean, everyone knows the plays that you guys run. It probably wasn't that big of a deal, and certainly it didn't make the news, and nobody was punished for it. But remember that time when Terrell Owens took off his shirt for an ad for Desperate Housewives? Funny, the things we choose to publicize. Nissan Stadium was opened in 1999 and will be replaced by new Nissan Stadium, a dome, in 2027, marking 28 NFL seasons.
Tennessee Titans 2014. The Titans' rock bottom moment came during the 2014 season when they finished a league worst 2-14. In week 17, they capped off their miserable season with a 27-10 loss to the Colts. The team was starting Zach Mettenberger. Enough said. Though you could argue that Will Levis has grabbed a shovel and is digging deep to find new memes every week.
Tennessee. For the first time since the Steve McNair era, the Titans are relevant, kind of. Ryan Tannehill magically going from being mid with Miami to posting historically awesome regular season stats in Tennessee remains one of the greatest mysteries ever. Notice I said regular season stats, as Tannehill has T-Mac, Titans. This is easily the winner for the most random mascot in the NFL. I understand the state animal of Tennessee is the raccoon, but still, your name is the Titans. They could have easily made their mascot a badass looking warrior with a cool sword, but instead they decided to go with a raccoon that looks blitzed out of its fucking mind and wears disco pants. Big fail. Rating 2 out of 10. Tennessee Titans, Steve McNair. A real tough choice between Warren Moon and Steve McNair. McNair made 2 AFC Championship games and a Super Bowl, whereas Moon never even made an AFC Championship game. But McNair's playoff stats are worse than Moon's. McNair won co-MVP in 2003, whereas Moon never won an MVP. Of all the choices on this list, this is the one I'm least sure about. 2 have almost identical production with the team, and in the end, I guess I'll go with McNair because he had people thinking Jeff Fisher was an elite coach for a while. Tennessee Titans, Lynn Dickey. Dickey would eventually go on to be an exciting gunslinger who had some good seasons for the Packers in the early to mid 80s, but his time with the then Houston Oilers was dreadful. In 5 years there, he started just 10 games and threw 8 touchdowns to 28 interceptions for a 43.2 rating. He's one of those guys who kind of slips through the cracks of his Tennessee Titans 1992 wildcard round. Back in the day, the Houston Oilers were famous for being extremely talented postseason chokers, and no postseason defeat of theirs exemplified that more than the 1992 wildcard game versus Buffalo. Buffalo was without star quarterback and future Hall of Famer Jim Kelly and had to settle for Frank Reich under center. Things went as you'd expect for about 2.5 quarters. Houston took a commanding 35-3 lead after a pick 6 to start the third, but then Buffalo exploded, no offense to Alderaan, for 35 unanswered points to take a 38-35 lead. Houston would tie the game at 38 to send it into overtime. But in overtime, Warren Moon threw an interception to set up Buffalo for a game-winning field goal, which they made to seal the 41-38 Tennessee Titans. Dan Pastorini. Pastorini was the quarterback for some of the Houston Oilers' most successful teams in the late 70s, but saying Pastorini was the reason those Houston teams were good would be wrong. In fact, looking at his numbers, it appears he was the weak link of the team, and the team was only good because of a guy named Earl Campbell in the backfield. Longtime Titans/Oilers fans might have fond memories of Danny Boy, but it sure isn't because of his individual play. I mean, 43 more interceptions and touchdowns? Tennessee Titans. Hey, remember when the Titans got the 1 seed last year? No. Me neither. Remember when everybody was stunned when they went 1 and done in the playoffs? No. Me neither. You see, Titans fans, even when you're really good, nobody gives a fuck about you because everybody knows when the chips are down, you are are never a real threat to win it all. We all know that eventually Malik Willis will take Ryan Tannehill's spot, and that will most certainly make the Titans exciting to watch for the first time since, I don't know, Vince Young. But will it translate to wins? Who knows? If you asked a casual NFL fan to name 3 players on the Titans not named Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill, I don't think they could name more than one. If the Titans ever did win the Super Bowl somehow, it would be forgotten about by the public at large in about 30 seconds. Tennessee Titans, 2018, Rashaan Evans. Evans played 4 unspectacular years in Tennessee before he signed with Atlanta. He's currently a free agent. Therefore, he was mid. 2019, Jeffrey Simmons. Simmons has validated the Titans for taking a chance on him, becoming a multiple-time Pro Bowler and one of the best players in the league at his position. He's been a hit. 2020, Isaiah Wilson. Isaiah Wilson could be, quite honestly, the biggest draft bust in the history of the NFL. So yeah, he's a miss. 2021, Caleb Farley. A supremely talented corner who has played just 12 games in 2 years due to injury problems, which was one of the concerns for him when he came out of Virginia Tech. He has a lot of potential, but it's looking like he'll never reach it. Therefore, right now, I'm going to have to say he's a miss. 2022, Treylon Burks. Burks had just 444 yards and a touchdown as a rookie, therefore making him a miss to this point. Tennessee Titans, 2003, Steve McNair. 2003, Steve McNair won co-MVP along with Peyton Manning, although to be honest, Peyton probably should have won it outright. Nevertheless, McNair still had 24 touchdown passes to just 7 interceptions while leading the league in passer rating with over 100. He also ran for 4 more scores and had his team 1 drive away from the conference championship game for the 2nd straight season, but unfortunately, his greatness was no match for Tom Brady's defense, as the Titans fell 17-14 thanks in part to a horrible Drew Bennett drop late in the game that never gets talked about ever, but needs to be talked about a lot. Tennessee Titans. Here's the Titans roster summarized. A superstar player at the least valuable position in the sport, a mediocre quarterback in his mid-30s, and 51 NPCs. Even when the Titans are good, they are irrelevant. Does anybody remember them making the AFC Championship game in 2019, or going 11-5 in 2020, or getting the fucking 1 seed in 2021? No, not any more or less than you do about them committing one of the biggest divisional title choke jobs ever to the Jaguars last year to miss the playoffs. After 10 games, Tennessee was 7-3 and Jacksonville was 3-7 for fuck's sake. If the Titans went 20-0 this season and won the Super Bowl in dominating fashion, it would be forgotten about within 2 minutes after the game. That's just how this team is. Under Mike Vrabel, they've never had any identity or year-to-year consistency outside of force-feeding Derrick Henry 30 times a game when he's healthy. Side note, Derrick Henry looks like a real-life version of Will Smith's character from A Shark Tale. They're never good offensively and defensively at the same time. In 5 years under Vrabel, they've had 2 top 10 defenses and 2 top 10 offenses, but never in the same season. Watching them play is like going to the DMV. It's a very strenuous endeavor. I do find it hilarious how they've actively tried to move on from Ryan Tannehill each of the last 2 seasons through the draft, but Malik Willis and Will Levis are both so dogshit, the team has had no choice but to go back for settling for Tannehill, who after 2 great regular seasons in 2019 and 2020 is back to being the meh quarterback he was in Miami. We all knew they would get destroyed in the 2019 AFC Championship game versus Kansas City, but choking away home playoff games each of the next 2 seasons afterwards has left this current core nothing more than an empty husk of a team. I mean shit, losing a home playoff game to Lamar Jackson and then losing the next year when your defense gives you 9 sacks is ridiculous. Also, Nashville, and really any southern state, are largely racist cesspools. If you enjoy country music, there's a 99% chance you have severe brain damage. Don't try that, and by that I mean listening to country music in a small town, or any town for good measure. Please. Tennessee Titans. What a bunch of freaking perverts, am I right? They used to be the Houston Oilers, aka Oil Her, which is a very, very sexual sounding name, and so they changed it to the Tit Ans. Literally, they have tit in their name. This sexualizes women and marginalizes women and reduces them to nothing but pieces of meat. I mean, what kind of sick bastard enjoys looking at tits? I mean, I would never, ever objectify a woman by looking at her breast. The thought of it, I'm such a class act and I'm such a good person, just the mere thought of that just disgusts me and offends me so greatly. Obviously, it did not offend people who run the Tennessee Titans because they promote it, but it's extremely offensive. Tennessee Titans, Isaiah Wilson. This one was easy. Isaiah Wilson was picked 29th overall in 2020 by the Titans, and he played in just 1 game. That's it. He played 1 game, played just 4 snaps total in his entire career, and that's all. I don't even know what to say. That's just fucking terrible, and one of the worst draft busts of all. The Tennessee Titans, Brian Callahan. Callahan spent the last 5 seasons as the Bengals offensive coordinator, and we all know Bengals had some success over that time, although it is to be determined how much of the Bengals' success and Callahan's success was due to having Joe Burrow, although Jake Browning did have a couple nice games in Joe Burrow's place last season. It was surprising for the Titans that they even fired Mike Vrabel. I know that a lot of people were surprised that Brazzer's dad got fired, but Callahan's 40 years old. He's been around the block. He won a ring as an offensive assistant with the Broncos in 2015, which is ironic because the Broncos won the Super Bowl in 2015 in spite of their offense, but I digress. Again, Titans, new head coach, 1 out of 5 on the hot seat ranking meter. I just hope that he's okay with being irrelevant because that's what the Titans are.
Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, a guy who was drafted really off of his physical tools and not his college production last season. He was a little bit better than expected as a rookie, although the bar was very low. The question with Levis is he the future of the franchise, or is he just another stopgap quarterback for a team that has never really seemed to have a franchise quarterback since Steve McNair, although Tannehill deserves a shout out. It's also fair to question, based off of some off-court antics, whether or not he enjoys premarital sex more than studying the playbook. First few games of this season, I believe, will tell everybody whether or not he's the real deal. If he struggles mightily early on, then that will signal, hey, this guy might not be the guy. We might have to tank this season and go pick quarterback high in the first round early in the draft. His prover rating is a 10 out of 10, just like his girlfriend. Tennessee Titans, DeAndre Hopkins. Again, the Titans are always irrelevant. The Titans have always been irrelevant, really since Steve McNair was there. They're just a team that, oh, the Titans, yeah, I forgot they existed. That's kind of what it is. So looking at them, there really aren't any players on their team that are super famous, but DeAndre Hopkins is one of them, and he's still one of the bigger names at the receiver position that the league has. And yet, you look at his production over the last 3 years, he hasn't really produced and stayed healthy like a elite receiver since 2020, and yet he's still considered one of the better receivers in the league, so I guess he gets the nod.
Tennessee Titans, Dan Pastorini, 1973. Back when they were known as the Houston Oilers, Pastorini, another high draft pick, came out and basically shat all over himself. 1973, the Oilers won just one game. Pastorini completed 53% of his passes. He averaged 5.1 yards per attempt, had 5 touchdowns to 17 interceptions, and had just a 49.0 passer rating. He also lost over 300 yards in sacks. Just very, very disappointing